So you went into Google to do a fragrance search on the next cologne you were looking to purchase. You stumbled upon a fragrance video on YouTube and you clicked on it, and then all of a sudden you went into this rabbit hole. Welcome to the fragrance community. This is how many of us got started in this fragrance community that we call the fragrance community here on YouTube, on Facebook, and many different platforms. And in today's video, I'm gonna address you, the newcomer, the noob, or someone who's starting to get into the fragrance community and have questions that I get asked all the time. So if you guys wanna know the most common questions I get asked, I will address them in this video in hopes to help you in your fragrance journey. Stick around. Welcome back to another video. I'm Forti. As you saw from the beginning in the thumbnail, this is going to be a video where I'm going to address many of the questions, but pretty much the most important questions. Some of these are going to be twofold questions that I've compiled over the past few months from all of you viewers out there, noobs, newcomers into the fragrance community that have a lot of questions, whether on my DM, personal messaging on Facebook, Instagram, or here on YouTube, or my personal email. So without any further ado, let's hop into the questions that you guys have for me. Just so you guys know, this will be compiled into 7 questions. I think 7 is the perfect number. And these 7 questions are pretty much going to encompass everything that you guys wanted to know. And if you guys want to know more, if you have further questions, perhaps I'll compile another video and put part 2 together for you guys. Question number 1 is, where should I begin? How should I get started? Should I go into designers or niche in my fragrance journey? So here's the thing. Most of us, I'd say over 95% of us frag heads, including myself, started in the designer realm of things, just because number 1, it's more accessible. Number 2, it's more price friendly. When you look at niche, especially when I started over 12 years ago into the niche, you were looking to pay retail. You couldn't really find niche fragrances into the discounters, so it was really hard to really start with the niche. Plus, I didn't even know about niche fragrances until like 2009. So my journey, as most of us here in the fragrance community, started mainly in the designer realm of things. Again, accessibility and also price point. However, keep one thing in mind, there's no right or wrong answer. If you guys are more inclined to try niche, especially nowadays because you have more availability and you can find them more accessibly into like discounters, by all means, a lot of times, high-end designer and niche are almost neck and neck with pricing these days, so you might as well start with niche if you're so inclined to do so. Question number 2 is actually something that has been going on for quite a while now here in America, and I get asked almost on a weekly basis as well. Should I give into the Oud hype? Oud fragrances, companies, designers, everyone now has an Oud-based fragrance or an Oud fragrance like Gucci Intense Oud, Gucci Guilty Oud, sometimes even more than one release within that Oud, genre. So what I would say is definitely give it a try, give it a go. You might like it. I think Oud is a very tricky kind of note. It can be done in a very animalic and a very pungent or even fecal or medicinal manner that a lot of people will be turned away or turned off by, but you also find some amazing, exotic, mysterious, and really high-end, very compelling fragrances done with Oud that are just incredible. And I've covered some of them here on my channel, and I'm gonna have some amazing Oud fragrances that I'll be talking about. Myself included, I was not a big fan of Oud fragrances. In fact, I actually hated them. I thought they were just too obnoxious, too abrupt, too strong, too pungent, but I came around and really came full circle, really appreciating Oud fragrances when done nicely. Over the past year or so, I really took a liking to Oud fragrances, and in fact, I'm gonna be putting out some amazing content for you guys over the next few weeks, so stick around for that. But yeah, my short answer to that is definitely give it a shot. I don't think giving in to the hype is the answer here, but definitely dab into it to broaden your horizons and really understand more of fragrances and notes. So I think if you can find the perfect balance, and I think a lot of companies do that very well, of East meets West, the best of both worlds, I'm pretty convinced that you'll be able to find an Oud fragrance that you enjoy as well. Next question is, are the most sought after, most expensive brands out there really worth the price tag and the hype? We're talking about brands like Xerjoff, we're talking about Amouage, Roger Parfums, so forth and so on. Are they really worth the price tag? Here's the deal. And I have a dedicated series on this matter and this subject on this channel, which is Big Bang for Your Buck, which talks about you don't have to spend a bunch of money to smell amazing. So the short answer to this is no, they're not worth the hype or some of the price tag that they fetch, because number 1, making fragrance is not that expensive anyway, but that's a conversation for a whole different video. But the long answer to that question is some brands actually do a very good job, a fine job of trying to find the best available compounds, the best possible blends, working with the best perfumers, the best briefs, to come up with the best fragrance, the best perfumes out there. So if there's brands that you should really be looking into when they command a pretty high and substantial price point, you got to be looking at the history of the brand. You got to be looking at how long has this brand been around or established? What is the history behind the brand? What kind of components and compounds are they really using? Who are they working with? Perfumers and all that stuff. You have to take all of that into consideration. The actual presentation, the cap, the bottle, attention to details. So there's a lot that goes into that, and it is up to you, the consumer, to find out whether or not you want to give your hard-earned money to these companies. Are they really worth your time and money and attention? Are they really doing justice of the name that they've actually acquired here in the fragrance community? One thing to keep in mind is even low-end designers or high-end niche fragrance brands have had groundbreaking fragrances or flops, fragrances that were not liked or didn't perform or weren't really well put together. So just keep that in mind. Don't completely disregard. That's why I have that series here on this channel, Big Bang for Your Buck, which really shows you guys hidden gems and fragrances that you guys should definitely look at that will not break your bank and will get you smelling amazing and perform quite well. But these companies that have been established over the past few years, they are up there for a reason. They have produced and come up with some really groundbreaking fragrances that we all come to appreciate. Next question is it really worth to hunt down vintage formulations of particular fragrances that were released in the past? Are they that much better, and are they worth the money that they fetch? Some of them, in the hundreds, if not thousands, depending on how far back you go with vintage formulations. The short answer here is yes, absolutely. I'm guilty as charged. I'm an avid fan and collector of vintage fragrances. In fact, fragrances from like 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s are really where my heart lies. Those are the fragrances that I typically tend to love and will always look to try to find them. But that's a very personal thing. You guys have to ask yourselves in your taste and your preference. A lot of people don't think that that's something that they should take into consideration. Whatever's out there today is fine, and you can find, high-performing fragrances, great smelling fragrances that are modern, and they like those modern scents better than the vintage formulations or the old school smells. I think a combination of both, to having a balance, is key here. Hence the fact that I hunt those old school fragrances, because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so I want to have that nostalgic feel, and hence the fact that I want to remember some people, some emotions, and some of the things that I lived back in the day. That's why I want to have those fragrances in my collection, or maybe something my father used to wear. So absolutely, I think they are worth the price they fetch, but if you can actually look carefully, you might be able to find some really amazing deals on some really incredible vintage fragrances. I know I have. And another thing to take into account with this, vintage and current formulation of fragrances, take La Nuit de l'Homme, for example, from Yves Saint Laurent. When you look back, 10 years ago, almost 11 now, in 2009, when it was first released, it was really strong, that beautiful cardamom on top. And as the fragrance progressed, I think they're like their fourth or fifth formulation now, the fragrance is like, a sixth or a seventh of what it used to be. So it goes to show that nowadays, unfortunately, companies are taking shortcuts. They want to mass produce fragrances. They want to offer big size bottles that we used to never have, like, 5-ounce bottle, 10-ounce bottles, just crazy stuff. But a lot of those things are very neutered and very, watered down, and just money grabs. We've seen that with flankers. It's a shame, but it's happening over and over again. Reformulations are taking a piggyback on, this IFR stuff, regulation, which it is truthfully, it's partially truthful, but I think a lot of the times they're pretty much taking advantage of that situation and just watering down fragrances just to get more money, more price per mil. It's sad, but it's happening over and over again. That cookie cutter situation of one particular successful DNA or scent profile being re-released over and over again by different flankers with different names or different accords or nuances, but it's pretty much the same kind of profile. So for that alone, I think vintage formulations were great because they were kind of like trendsetters. They were groundbreaking scents that were not really copying each other. And at that point, especially in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they were really taking risks. They were coming up with fragrances and DNAs that you can't really find nowadays. So I think there's a place for those in your collection. And a lot of us frag hats will do a 180, going through designers, niche, and then going back to the vintage. I know what this happened to me. I started with designers, I went to niche, very big, but then I came full circle back into designer's niche. I wanted to find fragrances that I wore when I was a kid and a teenager and a young adult. So that's where I'm at today pretty much. But of course, I smell and I try everything and I review everything for you guys. But that's everything in a nutshell. Next question is one that I get asked all the time. If I can't try or sample a fragrance if I don't have access to certain brands? Should I just blind buy? Short answer here is no, absolutely not. Do not blind buy. Don't spend your hard-earned money on something that you don't know how it's going to smell or react on your skin. So the long answer to that, it is cool. You know, I've done it many times. I'm guilty as charged again. I've spent thousands of dollars and time getting fragrances. It is cool to have that fragrance arrive. You can't wait to try that. Is it going to be great? It's going to be my next favorite. But then again, a lot of times it's going to be, you know, just a world of hurt when you get a fragrance and it doesn't last, or it smells nothing like you anticipated, or you went on somebody else's hype and you said, well, man, if this guy likes it, I might love it. So just do your research and sample fragrances before you actually blind buy, if you can help it. And a great way to do that, of course, I've shared with you guys time and time again, my partner, myfragrancesamples.com, partnered with them going almost 3 years because it is just the best place to do that. 100% authentic, fast shipping. Mark Mobley is a great person and part of this fragrance community, and has an amazing portfolio of great inventory with niche and designer fragrances, and will serve you guys with the 100% utmost professionalism and speed of service, guys. Check it out if you haven't. I'll have the link below. I think there's a code going on right now, Together 30 for 30% off. It's been going for a while. I think that code is going to end soon. So if you want, enjoy. But just to answer that question, yes, if you could sample, if you can get decants and wear their fragrance on your skin, live with it for a little bit, and really understand that scent. If it works with you, I think it's the best way to do it. It's gonna, you know, your wallet's gonna thank you, and you're gonna spend a lot less money in the long run and really enjoy your journey a lot more than just being stuck with these bottles that you hardly ever reach out for. This one kind of goes hand in hand with the question I just talked about, is where can I or can you find the best possible deal on fragrances? Nowadays, with the explosion of the internet, the explosion of social media platforms, we all know that you can find incredible prices on fragrances, niche, designer, whatever. Discounts are available to be had. If you guys look, you'll find it, of course. You have fragrance groups like the one I have, the Emporium of Scents, which has 16,000 plus members worldwide sharing this passion that we all have for fragrances, this beautiful hobby that we have. But even though it can be a very daunting task, it can also be very rewarding to find, you know, these very expensive fragrances for sometimes 50, 60, 70, 80, and sometimes even 90% off MSRP. So that's why I think the groups, the Facebook groups, are great, because you can find swaps, you can trade with people, you can find great deals. People are sometimes, you know, getting rid of their collections or selling them at the groups. You can find discount codes for these amazing discount websites, such as my partner of this channel, FragranceBuy.ca, which again I spoke highly about. I'm not going to really go into it, but to me it's the best website for discount fragrances, period, just because of the inventory, selection, customer service. Harry, the owner, I know personally, he's a gem of a guy. Again, I'll have that information below if you guys want to check out, you know, FragranceBuy.ca if you haven't already. But I think anybody who's not living under a rock is familiar with that site. I think it's the best out there. But yeah, you can find amazing discounts, you know, like I said, anywhere from 50 to 60 to 70, 80, and sometimes even 90% on clearance items on these such websites. You get discount codes, groups like the Emporium of Scents. You can find all of that, fragrance news, and everything fragrance related. So I think for better deals, you have two options: fragrance groups and discount websites such as FragranceBuy.ca. I would not really go into eBay or Amazon, just because you're going to run the risk of getting fakes. You know, if you don't want fakes, stick with places that you know are reputable, unless you know someone they've dealt with for many years. Like I've dealt with many sellers on eBay for 20 plus years. So I know these guys, I know they're not going to steer me wrong. But for the most part, and answering your questions, guys, best deals, fragrance groups that are doing that 24/7, or discount websites that you trust. I'm going to piggyback on this question because it's another question that I get asked a lot, which is, you know, how do you know you're dealing with somebody reputable? It's very simple with the fragrance groups like mine, Emporium of Scents. I tell you guys to do that all the time with anybody, unless you really know them. Ask for references. Ask them, you know, who have you dealt with? Can you give me 5, 6, 7, 10 references of people that I can, you know, double check and make sure you're a reputable person. You're an 100, you know, you're 100%, you know, authentic person. And don't risk it. If you're not 100% sure, if your gut feeling tells you that, you know, this deal is too good to be truth, don't pull the trigger. Most importantly, guys, do your due diligence. You guys can reach out to me. You know, I'm available on the group. You guys can DM me, PM me, email me. You know, I'll get back to you. You guys know I'm very good at that. I don't hide behind this computer screen here. You guys have questions, you can come to me and I'll definitely hook you guys up, especially if you're part of the Emporium of Scents. You know that we'll take the group very seriously. It's only run by me and my wife. So we don't take nonsense. You know, in fact, if people do things that are uncalled for, they get one warning. And if they do it again, they're completely banned from the group. So I don't want to get too much into this, but yeah, very important, guys. Do your due diligence before you pull the trigger. Now, this is a funny question, and it's one that I get asked every week. How many bottles should I own? And, do I have a disease? Am I sick? Why can't I stop getting fragrances? And what is the right size, the right wardrobe fragrance size that a gentleman should own? It's like a threefold question. So, number one, no, I don't think we have a disease. I think this is a hobby. Of course, there has to be some kind of a balance. If you're finding yourself buying more fragrances than anything else that you have in your life, then yes, you may have a problem reaching your maximum on your credit cards. If you're, just can't get enough of fragrances, you got to get fragrances every day, every week, then you may have a problem. But overall, it's a hobby, like every other thing. If you do it with balance, I think the best thing to do is set up a budget. Have yourself a monthly budget in which you're going to abide by. You have X amount of dollars to spend on fragrances on a quarterly basis or monthly basis. That way, you're gonna get your hobby going. You're gonna get new things. You're gonna always be excited about it without breaking your bank. I think that's very important. Second part of this question is, what is the right size? The simple answer to this question is one. You can have one fragrance, one signature scent that you're happy with. It makes you smell amazing, it does the job for you, and that's fine and dandy. But I know that's a hard thing for us frag heads, and if you're watching this video, there's no chance that you're gonna be happy with one fragrance. I know I'm not happy with one fragrance. I don't think I've ever was happy with one fragrance. Doing a lot of thinking, I think a good number would be 5. I think somebody, if they had 5 great fragrances to be an extension of their personality or the different settings and scenarios in their life, I think 5 fragrances would be perfect. And here's the reason behind it. You can have one signature scent that you can wear on a daily for like work, casual errands, something that really expresses who you are. And I also think you should have a more dressier fragrance for evening wear, for romantic settings, for a little dressier situations. And then you double up on that. You're gonna have 2 of those scents, casual and dressier, for warmer weather. And then you're gonna have, casual and dressier, more deeper scents for cooler weather. So right off the bat you have 4, and then you pick a fragrance for those special moments in your life, perhaps your son's graduation, or moments with that special someone, when you propose to them or whatever. Just that one fragrance for those really memorable occasions and memories in your life. So I think 5 would be a very good number to start off with, and you can actually live by those 5. 2 and 2 for the weather, cold and hot, casual and dressier, and then that one special fragrance for memorable occasions. I think that's a good size, wardrobe. It's not going to break the wall. You're going to smell amazing. You're going to have a nice array, a nice gamut of fragrance that suits you for all different settings and occasions. And I think you won't need anything else. So this is it. Those were the 7 questions that I chose that I think were really the best ones out of all the ones that I get asked on a regular basis. But a lot of these questions were actually 2-fold or 3-fold. So really, if you think about it, you got maybe a dozen questions answered here. But please let me know in the comments if you have any other questions regarding, fragrance collecting, started in the fragrance community. For you guys that have stumbled upon this whole rabbit hole of YouTube and the FragComm, please don't hesitate to ask me questions. You can ask it right here on this video. You can ask me questions on the Emporium of Scent Facebook group. You can also email me. I'm very accessible. maxforte@gmail.com or info@maxforte.com with any fragrance questions, guys. So thanks very much for tuning in. Thank you for all your support. If you would please, I would ask you to please slide that finger on that like button. Subscribe for a lot more if you did enjoy the video, if you found it useful in any way, shape, or form. And please don't forget to hit the notification bell icon for future videos just like these straight into your feed. As always, guys, remember, fragrance is emotion in motion. It's an extension of your character, so choose your scent wisely. I'll catch you guys again real soon. Take care.